Hello, and welcome to Guys Deals with Feelings, the podcast dedicated to addressing men's mental health issues and providing practical solutions. I'm joined by my good friend Jason, who, through the years of professional and personal experiences, including trauma and recovery, as well as over 18 years of being a licensed therapist, and my journey being profoundly shaped by the tragic loss of my son. Together, we're here to share what we've learned and continue to learn along the way. If you enjoy what you hear, please like, share, and subscribe. What's up, brother?
Hey man, howdy.
So
Morning.
today, continuing on the theme of how culture affects us, uh, and if you hadn't heard the previous episodes, culture is just everything around us, and our parents and how they've been affected by the society that we live in, the society itself, whether it's teachers, preachers, police, firemen, strangers on the street, the demographics, whatever it is, that's the culture we refer to, and how it is so instrumental in the life that we live. Not just, I mean, it's everything. It's how we think. It's how we feel. It's all of that. And not understanding that, and not understanding how it affects us, makes it. I don't know. I can't say impossible, but it makes it pretty damn hard to really find what it is that we value, find what it is that we really want, find what it is that makes us happy, which is the foundation of going after it. If you can't define it, if you don't know what it is, then how the hell are you going to set a map and go towards it? So we're trying to figure those things out. We're going through them. Jason and I have both uh, been through some tough things that set our journeys off years ago, um, and we're just talking about it. And one of the things that really blows me away, and I've learned in this journey, is that by the age of 7, we have created all of our beliefs. And when I say beliefs, I don't want you to just get twisted around the axles on do I believe in a God or not believe in a God. When I say beliefs, I mean how you react emotionally, physically, mentally when a circumstance arises. So a set of circumstances presents themselves, whether that's standing on a street corner waiting for cars to pass by before you cross the street, or in my instance, what happens, um, when your kid passes away. Like, what do you do? How do you react when life happens? And that's our beliefs. And that's understanding beliefs is tough. There's an episode on that if you want to go drop back and listen to that. But beliefs are the driver of our lives. They're the driver of what we pay attention to. They're the driver of, at a scientific level, the God, what's the cortex that what's that I'm brain farting right now. But anyway, there's a system that our brain has at the base. It's a filter that, based on our beliefs, that is what we do and don't experience consciously. Our brain is getting all these.
Confirmation bias might be what you're
Well,
referring to.
it's the one that before you buy the red Honda Accord, you never see a red Honda Accord, but as soon as you buy the red Honda Accord, there's red Honda Accords everywhere, and that's the God, it's got an acronym, a 3-letter acronym. But anyway, it when that kicks in, we don't even consciously experience things. So our beliefs are the driver of our human experience. So before we are 7 years old, those are for the most part set in stone. Now, something serious like what happened to me happens. You go through some serious, you go through an addiction, you go through something traumatic. These can shift. Beliefs can definitely be worked on and changed, but they have to be acknowledged. You have to understand them before you can even change them, because they're literally changing what it is that you experience. That's why perspective and all this is so powerful. As an adult, we had then have to figure out what in the hell it was that was driven into our bodies to give us our beliefs before we were 7 years old, which was really tough because who in the hell remembers what happens to them at 7 when they're 47?
Right.
I me. So you really have to start digging and what happened and what were the circumstances and how did those beliefs arise. So on a therapeutic level, psychologically, what's happening? Why is it why does it happen so fast? Why does it lock in at such a young age, et cetera?
Yeah. Well, let's see. Let's just like partially. Um, we have to build a case a little bit. So let me. There's a particular part of the culture that I'm particularly interested in that we're particularly talking about right now. On the deepest level, it's how do we what are we referring to when we refer to ourselves? Okay. And I am interested in how we relate to our minds and energy that is in our system. Okay. Now, culturally, the way we experience ourselves and the way we experience the world is a very it's very solid. Okay. Very physical, very solid. You know, that's what we see. We look out, we see the physical world. You know what I'm trying to say?
Mhm.
Well, we know that that's not exactly the case, to say the least. Our nervous system is a filtering system. It filters out everything outside of at least the visual component of our system filters out everything except the visible spectrum of light, right? So there's actually more going on than what we see, right? Okay.
Yep. As a
Um,
matter of fact, the 2 of us can sit in the exact same room and see different things. We will
yeah.
not see the same thing.
Okay. Fascinating. So that's the subjectivity in life, right? So and I'll get to a so for for somebody to make the claim that that by age 7, X, Y, or Z, right? It's just that's an impossible claim. It's not. I don't even. How would you quantify it? But how do you even quantify that, right? Like I understand they. I guess you could refer to certain things like developmental milestones, and I don't. But I'm not sure exactly what that's referring to be honest with you. Just going back to just one of the points that you were that you were making. I don't know. I suspect that that's just not accurate. It's just an inaccurate statement that is made in an attempt to understand something that is beyond any real comprehension. Um, in a way, but our past does influence our now, present, and it influences the future, right? So, one thing we don't understand is that our future is in the process of being created, depending on our level of consciousness, how awake we are, how aware we are of what's going on and who we are. Does that make sense? And how like habitual our patterns are as we move through life, right? You know? Um, so in this culture, the a really simple way to describe a problem, okay, is that we have become to believe that we are our thoughts. And so all our attention is on the mind and the activity there all the time. Like, so our attention is like a laser beam, like a lighthouse, okay? And we can affect our attention with practice, like a camera aperture. Anyway, so our attention is consistently on the mental sphere. And so we don't know that for one, we have a lot of stuff that needs processing from the past, but it's not nothing to be afraid of. It's just a matter of allowing ourselves to feel a little bit deeper. That's all. And the past is being experienced right now, currently. It's being experienced in our reactivity, our habits, thinking, right? And relating to ourselves and relating to other people. So it's active right now. So like even in the context of the therapeutic space that I work in, our focus is immediate. How does the past manifest itself currently in the present? Okay. And one way to talk about what's going on is that people are always in their head. I think people would be very familiar with that phrase. And there's a lot of past coming up and a lot of future.
But But all of that is influenced on the beliefs that we have for ourselves and for the world around us, which are established at this young age that I'm referring to. So, dad doesn't hug you when you cry, tells you to get tough. Mom runs to your aid every time you do cry, and that's how you get attention.
Amen. Those
Both of
things.
those are
Yeah.
going to dictate how you behave, how you react, how you associate
Yeah.
with the world around you. So
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
beliefs are what I'm referring to
Well,
when I say,
yeah, what I'm trying to do is just generalize it, right? So yes, let's say I grew up in a family, let's say I grew up in a family where any expression of anger was intolerable, okay? Or any expression of my needs was intolerable. Say it was somehow my my caregiver was overwhelmed and I don't know, they would say it's I'm selfish or something when I
mhm,
needed something, right? So that need is based off of an internal mechanism. Does that make sense? It's
yeah,
a
well, that
feeling. It's a
right,
feeling we have.
which
Again,
was
okay.
but it was created by an interaction with the caregiver and the child, correct?
Well, the need in that moment was an internally generated it was a internal energy, right? An
Hmm.
internal thing, something
Okay,
lacking here that needed something that it appeared to need something from the outside. And let's say the caregiver just didn't whatever. There was some form of rejection.
hmm,
Not in there's nothing intentional,
sure,
whatever. They just didn't have the capacity in that moment, okay? Well, what happens for us is a way to talk about it is we begin to disassociate from feeling because the only way we really have to interpret the lack of that energy being processed or minimized is that we did something wrong or like it's our fault or it has something to do with us. That's how, on a developmental level, we interpret that. Okay. And so that sets this pattern in motion of suppressing and denying certain things that come up inside. So we can't even like attend to it or be in a relationship with it. We don't even like let's take anger. Let's say I grew up in a situation like that. If any sort of even healthy like boundary setting energy comes up, right? Because it's just an energy of like of no, this is a boundary, then a person wouldn't have access to that. And then often, if you grew up in a situation like that, as an adult, you may have issues with setting boundaries, saying no, taking up space. That makes
you're right.
sense. Um, so yeah, just as an example, yeah, you're right. Those are some examples. But what I do is I try to generalize for people. Okay, and what I say is, okay, but really, what's happening is you just don't feel in the way you think you do. That's what I say to people. You're not connected to your body. You're not connected. You're not grounded in your experience as a human being. You're not centered. You're always off in thought. Your attention's always up in the ether, up in thought, up in the mind, in the future, in the past, right? And and we just don't know there's another way.
Yeah, and I think it's an A and a B. I think where I'm coming from on A is I didn't even know why I was reacting the way I was reacting, or why I
Yeah.
was experiencing the life I was experiencing, and I was questioning why is that happening. And it turns out, dad wasn't around, and mom wasn't around either. I mean, I'm just a Gen X kid, right? Like parents weren't
Yeah, we're
around,
latchkey
and
kids. Yeah.
right, and so we
We were
all,
raised on screens and by
yeah.
peers.
Right, and so we've all got mom and dad issues because they weren't home. Everybody was at work. They were doing what they thought was best. This is no judgment. I'm not
Let me
looking
say
at
this
mom's.
different. Let me say it differently. Here's what we have. We have an unintegrated system. We have a left hemisphere of the brain that doesn't communicate with the right hemisphere of the brain, right? So we have this orientation towards thinking, doing, analyzing, comparing, all habitual, right? Psychological processes. Um, and and it that equals or a way you could talk about it is a imbalance in the system, an unintegrated system, disembodied, right? And so you could say that when you start to what happens when you start to increase coherence between the left and the right hemisphere and the brain and the heart, okay? Um, One of the most ancient technologies that is available to do that is sitting and being still, relaxing. The right hemisphere is well can be referred to as feminine, creative, receptive, open, relaxed. Anyway, they're just metaphorical ways of talking about things. But and the right hemisphere of the brain has the, I guess you could say, the heart connection is a way that it can be it can be talked about. Um, and so we're just unintegrated. We're out of balance. We're too much in our head.
but not in and that's the part right there, that disconnect, and I keep jumping in on,
Please.
because it wasn't that part that was so, I think a big issue and why you and I do this, especially focusing on men, is because nobody's nobody A likes to talk about it. Men don't want to listen to it. You're a pussy if you even think about this type shit. But what is crazy, what was wild to me is being I had a anchor around my neck or whatever that kept pulling me back, and I didn't, even when I was making progress on other fronts, and this is post Joel dying. I didn't look at any of this shit. I didn't even talk about this shit, didn't think about it before Joel died. So this is all after Joel died, and I'm getting some headway and some momentum, but I'm still reacting broken. And the thoughts, I understand what you're saying in the past and the present and all that, and that's another focus. But why do I react as if, when my partner does something, why do I react
Ah, I
as
got it.
if
Okay, because
she's
you had because the past because there's still residual information that needs to be processed from the past.
right? And so much of that happens to us as a child because it's so impactful when we ask our caregivers for something and they don't provide it. Whether that's I was at home and looking around and you weren't there, Gen X latchkey kid, or whether that was I came up and asked for something because I was hungry and you shushed me away because you were on the phone with your mom having an important conversation. Whatever, what I'm saying. So either
Yeah,
of those changes that human child's life until as an adult they stop and process it. And so if Joel never dies, I never stop to think that I'm crushed. At that point I would have just been angry. So now that I can identify emotions, my partner says something, not even it's just she
yeah,
says something in conflict to what I'm saying, not just a screw you or a I don't like you or anything, like just something very subtle, and I take it as a dagger to the heart because I got dad issues and mom issues, but I don't know that. So all I'm doing is, what the fuck's wrong with her? Why is she attacking me? And she's not attacking me. And that's that communication we were talking about last week or last episode where we were discussing how hard it is to just communicate with other humans. And this is another reason I think I had such a problem with it. Now I know. Now when my partner says something that she doesn't mean anything by, and I take it as, you know, like I'm gonna buck up. Like, oh, you ready to fight? Are you?
yeah, yeah,
And I
yeah,
look at her and
yeah,
she's like, you want something to drink? And I'm like, she's not ready to fight. And I say, well, hang on a second. That's inner child me getting upset about my mom not being at home ever or dad not being there. That's that. And I think once you process that, to your point of it's just unprocessed. I think once you process it and understand it, you can at least identify it when it when it rears its ugly head.
well, let me I wanna clarify something. I wanna try to simplify something, okay? So let's talk about what's ideal, okay? So we are feeling beings. There we go. Just whether how the depth at a person's relationship to that will vary, but that's what we are. We're feeling beings. Things come up, things move through. Okay. Our problem is they don't move through, right? And so when things come up, when that contraction happens, when that tension happens, and now we're in story and we're misinterpreting and we're judging and we're blaming and we're not responsible for our feelings. Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
It's always related to the past. And in reality, look, I gotta I'll be careful with this because I say to people, the story it's not relevant as it relates to the mechanics of processing. Okay. So let me so obviously our story matters because it's our story as a human. This is what we experience. So I'm not saying that. I mean it's all about right now. The mechanics and how to process the past are happening right now. You don't have to go excavate. You don't have to go find stuff, okay? What you have to do is practice feeling more throughout your day and not just I can simplify it, just not being in your head, being present. That means you'd be feeling. You're just feeling, you're just flowing through a moment in time, flowing through an instant, right? You're just there. You're not, it just that's what's happening, okay? All right. So that is the a really clear way of of imagining what you're working towards. More presence, okay? And as you develop that capacity, so when a person, let's say a person sits down and practices or does like vagus nerve stuff or practices meditative work, okay? All right? Just think about actually what's happening. Don't work, just forget the word. Forget you've ever heard anything about it. Okay. So a being sits down, they take their attention and they put it on their body, which is always right now. Bodies, since the past and the future are imaginary anyways.
Mhm.
Anyway, the body's always right now. So then a human being sits down, puts their attention on the body, and anytime the attention drifts into the past or to the future or to a sensation, right? That person then redirects their attention back to whatever point on the body, right? Whatever visualization, whatever they were doing. Okay. They practice controlling attention, focusing attention, not being, it's literally practicing not attending to the past and the future. It's literally what's happening. You are practicing not attending to the past and the future. Okay. And when you do that, it allows you gradually to have more access to feelings. Okay. Now, the first level that we encounter is that level of the unprocessed stuff. Okay. And so, I mean, actually, what we're trying to do is if anything does come up, like as we sit down and practice staying out of the past and the future, it increases our capacity to feel things. Okay. And what we're trying to do is if something comes up like a feeling, and then we notice that there's a memory, okay? What we're trying to be able to develop is the capacity to move towards the feeling with our attention, not towards the story, not towards the memory. Does that make sense how I'm saying that? Is
Yeah.
actually feeling what's happening. Now, if you can do that, if one can do that, it's likely they'll experience a release just like a, "Oh god, that was fucking hard," right? Without any villains, without anybody to blame, just an actual release. Just a fuck, this that was hard. Life is hard. Do you know what I'm saying?
I do, and I think, the way you're saying it is key because it's not it our stories, present or past and, future, as you say, are our imagination, and I've often said that it's So in our past, and I'm sure this applies to our future as well. In our past, we have an emotional response to a circumstance. And as every second passes, the actual event, and it was already seen through the filter, and I remembered it's the reticular activating system, the RAS in our brain that filters out so much. So, first, our RAS filters out a bunch of stuff that everybody else there saw that we didn't. I've often referenced this as why uh, visual eyewitnesses are so you can't count on them.
Two people walk in a room and one person says, "Man, they were weird to me," and the other person did not experience that at all.
Right. May not even seen them. You know what I mean? So, so the two totally different experiences. You have that filtered out. Then you have your emotional response. So I was scared. So it was dark outside, and so now my brain says dark means fear. I've linked that to it, and as every second passes, what it wasn't actually everybody's experience. My experience, the memory of it changes into this imaginary thing that more relates to fear and adds to the fear. Everybody knows about the guy whose fish goes from 12 inches to 24 inches over the 10 years of telling the story. We do that with everything, subconsciously, consciously, on purpose, not on purpose. We do that, I think, to attach to the emotion that best fit that. So if it was a great event and you loved it, you're adding a bunch of things in your brain about how awesome, and you're focusing on all the awesome things that happened, and you forget that, so and
Oh,
so,
yeah,
you
you
know
let
what I
me
mean?
let me even say this differently, okay? I love that. It's really so let's say I'm 5 and, I'm looking for something from my mom, and my mom, being a grown ass human with really complicated and you know what I'm saying, it just wasn't present, wasn't there. And there were certain particulars about her where she was, or my father. It's not, doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Like facial expressions or tone of voice or something. And so now, cut to I'm an adult. And when my wife, there's a way in which my wife can do a thing that really tweaks me in a way that I don't quite understand.
Hmm.
And it has to do with the tone of voice, the right. So, but again, we're getting into what I generally say to people. You can imagine whenever there's a flash and we're whoo, hit with something. Um, for a long time, generally, the first interpretation is just off. We have to learn to pause. Whoa, 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 whoa. And actually develop a capacity to investigate, to confirm, to be curious about what's happening rather than just taking it as truth. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, and that's what I was saying. I think is so crucial. I went on a long-winded way to say it, and I never got the point out. It's an imaginary thing. Your mom may or may not have made the face, or your imaginary mom
No,
in the
it
scenario.
happened. Yeah.
She did make but
But we
what she was wearing,
misinterpreted what was happening.
you misinterpreted it, and B, when you get 40 years later, 42 years later,
40 years of misinterpretation.
you've added some
Yeah.
things and taken
Amen.
some things away. You
Yeah.
don't remember that she was crying or that her mom was really sick and in the hospital or whatever the fuck it was. You don't remember those things because they don't play to the emotion of being crushed that mom didn't get you what you were hoping to
And
get
you
from her.
have 40 years of misinterpreting facial expressions that have confirmed it
That's right. So you've confirmed it. You've affirmed
for
your feelings
40
all these
years.
years. So to say all that,
But don't fret.
right? But
Don't
so
fret.
to what I was trying to say is, it doesn't matter. You don't have to find the
No,
event in the kitchen with mom. You don't have to find that.
you do
You
not.
just have to find that as a child, I had this feeling, and that's the release. I believe you're saying, and I think I've
Here's
never
what I'm
really heard
saying.
that. So
Here's what I'm saying. I'm saying that so it's always the past. Don't sweat it. The past is always contributing to now and predicting our future. So, and that even shows up in our thoughts. If we haven't cleared the past, as we think about the future, it's going to be filtered through the past. that is automatically full of misinterpretation.
Just
It's the way it
imaginary.
works for
Yep.
us. It's the way that it works. We don't have the capacity to see our parent as a complex grown ass adult with with a relationship, and we don't have that capacity. My job now, and my what I'm really passionate, it's simplifying it. It's always the past. Drop why. It's always the past. Okay. All right. So then what that means is we're just trying to develop the capacity to be still, to control, or you could say
Identify.
hone in our capacity for attention. That's like the first step, our focus and attention. Okay. Think about how unattentive we are today, how rampant the ADHD just so actually, an inattentive, a difficulty with focus, attention, filtering out what's relevant, seeing a thing to completion. Okay. Um, so the lack of all that is the norm. I mean, the diagnostic criteria system is insane. So actually, the norm is ADHD, and we automatically have the capacities at varying levels to hone in our capacities to focus. Okay, right? Uh, that's why for centuries the whole like the initial instruction, the initial point of meditative work is focusing, um, paying attention to focus and attention, practicing keeping your attention where you want it. Okay, and then again, think about what I mean. It's practicing not attending to the past and the future, just being right here. Does that make sense? And so, as adults, what we're this is the habit, okay? We have a habit of always attending to the mind and the needs of the character up there. Okay? Does that make sense? All right. Okay. And so that's really about unmet feelings and fear. So it's primarily what it's about. Okay. I mean, if you can wade through the varying levels of a feeling, okay, which is just energy, feelings are energy. So if you can wade through the various levels, you like anger, boom, 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 and you drop down deeper, you'll get to fear. You'll get to fear. It's pervasive in our experience. We just don't know that. Okay. But anyway, so essentially, yeah, all we're trying to do is learn to be still and just feel a little more into our body, into feelings. It will be uncomfortable. And again, there's a lot of fear that's related to it. We spend a lot of time out of that dimension, right? Um, especially as men. And so I often will hear things from people that are kind of are kind of reflective of the idea that if somebody opens the door, they're never going to be able to close it. Like they think it's open some kind of floodgate. And you got to start going back into the past and digging things up. That's not. There's an intelligence. There's an intelligence in the process. There's an intelligence in the system. You don't have to control it. You just gotta take the action of sitting down and trying to direct your focus, direct your attention, and just let the mind do what it's doing, let the body do what it's doing, and you just stay there and try to relax. Okay? Because essentially we are mostly avoiding the past in our current situation. That's the majority of what living has become for many people.
It, how can I say it that we're avoiding feelings?
Yeah, so that's it, that's what I mean. So to say I'm always in my head, people will use that phrase almost like it's a personality characteristic, like it's sort of like a natural thing, but it's actually unnatural for us. And so the natural condition of the mind is open, spacious, receptive, curious, but that's not our experience typically. Yeah, we don't relate to that. Um, and so it's not natural to be, you could say, thinking all the time, always in our head. All that's saying is that my attention's always up there. It's a simple way to say it. My attention's always up there.
You're
Okay.
and an easy, if you're new to this and you're like, "Jesus, I don't even know what the hell they're talking about because 'cause I'm so far from that." Just experiencing if you're standing at the water cooler talking to Joe and you're thinking about what your wife said last night or what you're hoping to do this weekend, then you're not being present. And that's what Jason's talking about, being in that moment. And it sounds silly, just, well, why do I give it a shit? I really don't even like Joe. He just caught me at the water cooler and got to carrying on about football. Everybody knows that I don't even like football. I want to be talking about fishing. So that's being in your head and staying away from being present. And Joe is just an example, a microcosm of the greater issue at hand. And if we're never experiencing right now, then we're not where there's no way to be identifying appropriately the feelings that we're having, which are then
Because all
dictating
the
our
wisdom is right now.
yeah. Well,
And we have inherent, innate wisdom. But it's right now. This is where it is right now. It's not back then. It's not it's not over there. It's
but it's
right
a
now.
but that is the and
I
that's
know.
why Jason's consistently speaks on meditation and the practice that it is it's shooting free throws for this work that we're talking about. That's the free so life gets you get to the free throw line and trying to stay present, and you can't do it if you haven't done the practice. You're gonna
Yeah,
miss
and
at
somehow,
least half of them.
listen, again, culturally, that practice, and so that's why I said earlier, just forget that word and forget any visuals you've ever had about it or anything. Don't overcomplicate it. Don't over mystify it, right? Um, it's you don't need to. Uh, if you get deep enough into those teachings, the teachings that contain em emphasizing meditation, right? Um, the emphasis is always on presence, maturing into presence, um, maturing more into a capacity to just be here as a human being, be in this life the way that it is, right? Um, Not so much time worrying about the future, right? But if people really learn to pay attention to what they're thinking about, much of what thinking is actually about is the fear of future emotional experiences.
Yeah.
So then it's logical. It would be beneficial for me to begin understanding emotions and my fear around them, which would theoretically then minimize the tendency to think about the future because I'm actually thinking about future emotional experiences.
Well, and said the way I often say it is, if you just bring yourself into the present, it's probably not even going to be a negative emotion occurring. If you're standing there with Joe, the worst it could be is annoyed because right now you're thinking about what your wife said, so you're angry or you're scared, really, like Jason to Jason's point. Your feelings were hurt if you're actually identifying feelings. You got in there and your feelings got hurt. And so you're worrying about that. So the negative emotion is actually coming from last night where you were trying to get. Or to Jason's point, we're worried about the future emotional reactions. So the negative reaction is coming from there. So
Yeah,
if we
yeah,
just
yeah,
could
yeah,
get
yeah, yeah.
present, we're
Yeah, and let me
probably
let
not
me
even
and let me
having a negative reaction.
let me say this, when a person says, "My feelings were hurt," here's what I say to them. I say, "Oh, meaning there was something happening inside of you that you made the other person responsible for." That's what's meant by that phrase. So like when we use that phrase, if I'm working with it happens all the time. So when somebody says to me, "My feelings got hurt," my my immediate response is, that I don't know at all what that means. Be more specific.
Mhm.
Do you follow what I mean? So, what happened in that moment? What did you take as personal?
Right. Back to my girlfriend
That
says something,
yeah,
and
yeah,
I feel
yeah,
like she wants to fight
yeah,
when
yeah.
she was just wondering if I wanted
How
something
did
to
you
drink.
interpret what they were
That's
doing,
right. That's right.
right? So
Eh,
so actually we're consistently interpreting our experience
through the lens
of the
of
past.
the hurt child, often of the hurt child. And if you're a Gen X latchkey kid, you can say how, yeah, we're tough. We're just hardened to our feelings sucking.
Yeah.
And it's, it doesn't have to be that way.
Nope,
And
nope, nope,
we can
nope.
just, and to Jason's point, you don't have to look back and think about all the places where such and such happened and you felt such and such. It's just, you had those feelings. Those are from that time. You can experience them and let them go and release. The Body Keeps the Score is a great book that discusses this in great length. Um,
Yeah, but,
Release the Tiger Within, I think, is another one.
what I'm doing is I'm condensing those books, and, I'm working to condense those books into a paragraph
Right.
and to practical mechanics for people. Practical mechanics, right? So, yeah, we're just not aware that this is how things operate for us. So let's say, for instance, our chest, was fluttering. Well, now all of a sudden we see the color purple out there in the world. That's how it works for us. We're projectors. Does that make sense? We experience the world the way that we are at our level of conscious awareness.
And that creates and maybe this will be the next episode, that creates our reality. And that is why all realities are unique to the individual who is experiencing
Yeah, it's a choose your own adventure game, essentially. But there are universal rules. There are universal laws, right? Like karma, cause and effect. Do you see what I mean?
it.
That is a
Gravity. Yeah,
universal
yeah,
law.
yeah.
Yeah, in this realm, duality is a rule. This is the place of energy, of dual energies, light, dark,
Which
right?
thank God it is because without darkness, we wouldn't experience light.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Uh,
yeah. Essentially,
so
as
it's
humans, we are we are, and I'm this is metaphorical. I mean this to our insides. We're afraid of the dark. We're afraid of the depths of who we are.
uh, and even if it's not fear, it's ignorance. I didn't know. In my case, it
Ignorance
were
leads to fear.
well,
The
ignorance does lead to fear.
ignorance
Yeah.
is so in like in Buddhism, they speak to real central things: impermanence, and then ignorance, and ignorance meaning let me see how let me I'm going to say this simply. It's believing that this world is solid and the only thing that exists, and that you're born and you die. So that's in essence what is meant by that phrase, ignorance. It's that you actually are this character that was born and will die. And so, what the illumination that the character titled the Buddha, which there was 24 before that character. So that character uh, shed a certain identity and realized the truth of that we don't. There's no such thing as birth and death. It's just a really straightforward way of saying it. Really straightforward. No need to overcomplicate it.
Well, the ignorance I was referring to was way less deep.
I know,
It,
but that
ignorant to the fact is where I was coming because that's where I
amen.
lived. I
Yeah,
was ignorant to
amen.
the fact, and
Yeah,
it goes all the way from that to we're ignorant to what Buddha
amen.
came to.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
all the Buddhas before were ignorant to that fact until just now when you
And then and
educated
I
me. Uh,
and this is just a simple way of saying something, okay? Um, we're just we just need to feel deeper into our experience. It's a really simple way, and that means we gotta start slowing down. Just slowing things down, right? Uh, and then th that's where wisdom is, insight is, you know, um, so,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I can hear, "I can't slow down, I got all blah, blah," and that's how you got to where you're at, and that's the experiences, the negative reactions, relationship issues, all of these things are at the core of, are the results of these core things that we're discussing, and we're trying to, I guess, hold it up to show the listeners this is what's going on. And in my mind, it helps you give yourself some grace. Like, don't be so damn hard on
Mhm.
yourself. There's a lot of moving parts to this whole
Yeah,
deal.
yeah, yeah,
I can't give yourself some grace because hadn't anybody ever showed you or talked to you
yeah,
about this stuff. Lastly, show yourself some grace because there's so many external forces pushing you in the direction that those forces want you to go in. And I'm not going to chase that down right now, but there's a lot of them. They want you to go in a certain direction. If that's the direction you want to go in, that's great. But you have to be able to identify that and come up with all these things and experience the feelings, blah blah blah, that we're talking about, to even know what it is that you want. So we've been herded in a certain direction, and it's the awakening that we discuss that happens, when everything gets so fucking broken that you've got to wake up from that, and then you realize, well, shit, I'm gonna wake up from this other stuff. In the process, it just happens because of the realization. So,
yeah,
anyway,
and
I think.
yeah,
Go
yeah,
ahead.
yeah, and I'll say to people that I work with, that it's paradoxical, right? So, there is a deeper process that's working here in our life. That is just the ultimate truth. There's a deeper process that's working, and, and that involves is particularly relate for all of us. What that means is beginning to, let go of certain things we've been carrying around for a really long time, and there are a lot of people moving into that space, that space of healing, a space of letting go, that space of discovery as it relates to ourself, right? Um, there's a lot of people moving into that space, but there's a lot of information that, as far as I can tell, there is a lot of information that's needed, a lot of misunderstandings. There's a lot of gaps to be filled. Um, and so, yeah, just to echo something that you've said, if there's something that needs to be processed, okay, all we have to do is begin rebalancing the nervous system by slowing down and stopping paying so much attention to the thinking patterns and right. Um, and if we do that, if there's something that needs to be processed, it will come up just for us to feel it, experience it, like, and have compassion for the character that went through it. Okay. And if something doesn't need to come up, it won't. It's like we don't have to,
Force
like
it.
there
Yeah.
again, there's an
Mhm.
intelligence. And I'll just add something to that, something you said. If we can develop that compassion and grace for ourselves, that will directly um externalize that, and we'll start to experience that more for other people. And one very sticky part of our experience as human beings is judgment, and it's judging other people and being afraid of other people, right? And just not allowing other people to just be whatever the fuck, just do you.
Yeah.
As long, you know what I mean? Um, we don't have that capacity really to have compassion outwardly until it's happening inwardly. Everything starts inside first, all of it, right? But our culture, we were told that everything starts outside first, right? It's just the opposite.
Yeah, and I think that we'll do the next, episode we'll do on realities. That was it was so crucial for me to really grasp that what the word means is it's just me and what I'm experiencing, and then you and your experience. And that really helped me understand and have empathy, understanding, grace, whatever words you want to throw in there when dealing with others who, I feel like I'm right about this situation. And here stands this individual on the opposite side of it that I care about. And so
Yeah,
that,
some
that,
people will refer to you it almost seems like we're self-centered. So that's a really interesting way to talk about our experience for quite a while, right? Okay, but that again, that's just I like referring to that habit of wound-centered, past-centered. It's just another way of saying it.
so we'll jump on that and how it helps us deal again, back to the communication, how it helps us deal with the others in our society that we need to, want to, have to, whatever, be around as members of society. But that'll wrap us up for today. And we sure appreciate your time. We know it's your most valuable asset, and we sure hope that we brought some value to it. Until next time, we hope you have an awesome day.